Keeping up with the Joneses is something that affects many people, and it's easy to fall into the cycle, especially on social media. A lot of people don't realize they're doing it, but it's one of the easiest way to stay broke. 90% of people have these bad money habits and may not even realize it. And the unfortunate part is it's actually hindering you from reaching the financial goals that you want to reach. And we sometimes actually have these bad money habits for our lifetime until we wake up and realize there is a better way. And I'm actually going to be showing you the better way. Now, by the end of the video, you're going to have action steps in order for you to overcome these bad money habits. Now, I would say the resolution, the fix for these habits are something that you're going to have to be conscious about and also strategic about in order for you to overcome these bad money habits. All right, so let's start with bad money habit number 1, overspending and impulse buying. Now, I've been here. I've done that. And every time I impulse buy or overspend, for me, it's either because I have a lack of vision of the financial goals I'm working towards, or I forget to work towards those financial goals and I forget my way. And next thing I know, I'm spending unnecessary money. And on top of that, sometimes it's not even my financial goals that I'm working towards. Sometimes it's my emotional state at that point. And I'll give you a perfect example. Sometimes when I'm in a stressful situation and I want to get my mind off the stressful situation, I sometimes impulse purchase. And when I impulse purchase during that stressful time, most of the time, I regret that purchase. And the reason being is because number 1 was an impulse, and also it was at a time where I was not at the right emotional state. And so I made an irrational decision. And when you do that, most of the time, after you wake up from the fog, you realize, oh man, that was dumb. Why did I do that? Why did I spend money on that? That's I don't need this. And so when I realized that, I actually told my wife this. I was like, okay, babe, if I'm in an emotional situation, keep an eye on me because I might end up buying something random and I need you to stop me. But it affects everybody. Okay, regardless of what background you have, it affects everyone. That's like my Achilles heel, I would say. So what I have started to do to overcome that is if I find myself in a stressful situation or I'm in a stressful time in my life, I make sure I communicate with my wife, hey, pretty stressed out about this. You already know when I'm stressed out, I sometimes randomly overspend or impulse buy. Just come up to me and ask me, hey, you're stressed out. Are you thinking about buying anything? And I could say, yes, I'm thinking about buying this. And it's like, well, let's talk about it. Don't buy that. We don't need that. Okay. So that's a method that I use. And sometimes it might not even be a stressful situation. It may be an impulse purchase that is influenced by outside influence. For example, when you go shopping or when you go out to go buy something that you don't intend to buy, usually what ends up happening is that you were coerced, influenced by a sales tactic. The deal that's happening today and only today. And if you don't buy this, the product that you want to buy right then and there that you had no intention on buying is going to be gone. Those tactics are marketing tactics that's being used on us all the time. And on top of that, even online purchasing, that's the same thing. I mean, you go on Amazon, you see it a lot on Amazon. And the reason being is because they're playing at that emotional, the fear of missing out, the idea that, this is the only deal, the only time. And if you don't take it, you're going to lose out on it. Okay. And it works for people. And so let me give you some steps to break out of this impulse and overspending habit that you may have. Okay. So one of the things you can do that I like to do is I like to put a 24-hour rule. And that 24-hour rule is saying, if I really want this product and I have the money for it, I'm going to wait for 24 hours before I actually make that purchase. And what that allows me to do is really just sit on it and say, okay, well, right now I might not be in a right emotional state to make this purchase. And so if I really want it, if it's still something that after 24 hours, I still want to buy it, then okay, fine, I'll buy it. Another thing you can do is the cash method. I like this method because it really brings it into reality as to how much you're spending right then and there. When you use a credit card, it's hard for you to gauge how much you're spending because like, oh, okay, swipe. And when you're swiping, you're thinking, oh, I'll just pay this later. I'll pay this down the road. And what ends up happening is that, and I'm going to talk about this later on, is, gradually increasing your debt balance. So when you make that purchase with cash, it's immediate, you feel it, and on top of that, that transactional process, you're looking at your cash or hard-earned money leave you, and you're wondering, oh, do I really want to spend this $300 on this product right now? Do I really need it? So those kind of thoughts go through your head, and also you take the time in when you're making that purchase because you're like, oh, I'm getting ready to spend $300. What else can I use with this $300? And so those are the things that go through your mind when you're actually using cash. That's what happens to me. Bad habit number 2, not having an emergency savings fund. A lot of times when someone doesn't have an emergency savings fund, they resort to the use of credit cards. And so essentially what you've just done is change the problem to another. Your car tire went out. It's flat. Car broke down. Right now, it's you needing to fix your car. If you don't have the emergency savings fund, the funds to cover that cost, and you use your credit card to cover that cost, now it's I have a debt problem that I need to overcome. See how that works? You literally switch the problem from the car needs to be fixed, I need the funding to fix the car, to I fixed the car using a credit card. I paid for the fix using a credit card. Now I got a credit card debt that I have to deal with. So let's avoid all of that process by having an emergency savings fund. So let's talk about ways in which you can actually start building an emergency savings fund. Okay. First, you have to establish a specific account. This is where some people trip up on. A specific account for your emergency. So it's not like, oh, I already have a savings account. That savings account is just my general account. I just pulled money out of it just to, do a purchase or something. No, this savings account is specifically for my emergency savings fund, which means that you're either establishing an emergency savings fund that has like a high yield account or a money market account, right? Those are the two types of account you can open for emergency savings. I mean, those are the two basic accounts that are out there, right? Just a general savings account, but it's a high yield because you're going to have money sitting there. And a money market account provides you with a higher yield than some, standard savings accounts that you open at a bank. So let's move on to bad money habit number 3, carrying a balance on your credit card and misusing your credit card. That is something that we all do. A lot of Americans have credit card debt. And sometimes that credit card debt is a result of not having an emergency savings fund. So you end up utilizing your credit card for that emergency, and now you're carrying a balance. Sometimes because of our impulse shopping. And because of our impulse shopping and overspending, we carry a credit card balance and build up that credit card. Now, every time I found myself accumulating a balance on my credit card, I can always point it to an impulse purchase. And I did not want to use cash to make that purchase. Every single time. I don't like carrying a balance on my credit card. Actually, most of the time, I don't carry a balance. But when I find myself carrying a balance and ask myself, what the heck? How did I get here? It's because I made an impulse purchase. And I did not want to use the cash to pay for the product. So I used my credit card because I'm thinking, oh, I get the points. And then next year I know, I'm like, oh, I'll pay for it later. I'll just, pay the balance and put a little extra on the card. And knowing that I have the money to pay it off, I'm just like, no, I don't want to use that right? I don't want to use the money that I have to pay off this credit card balance because I have made an impulse purchase. And that just tells you that, number one, the impulse purchase you made was unnecessary. And number two, you're trying to postpone making those paying it off because you know, like, oh, I literally just made an unnecessary purchase. And now I'm going to ease the pain, minimize the pain of making this unnecessary purchase that was not part of my budget by putting it on a credit card and making the incremental payments, the minimum payments, and paying a little bit extra on it so that I can space it out so that I don't feel the effects of it. So let's go ahead and talk about how to break the habit of accumulating debt on a credit card and also misusing a credit card. One of the simplest thing you can do, one of the most simple thing you can do is not use them. I know, it's genius. Don't use them. If you know you're going to be the person that's constantly utilizing a credit card, constantly carrying a balance on a credit card, constantly making those impulse purchases because you have the credit card, don't use them because they're not going to benefit you in any way. Now, I'll tell you a funny story. Like, I was the type of person to not use credit cards at all for anything. And then one day I got a credit card and I started using it. And I said to myself, all right, I got a credit card now. I know I know it could be bad if you misuse it, but I'm not going to be the person that misuses it, right? Because I know. And I said to myself, I'll never carry a balance and I will pay it off every month. And I did that consistently for like years. And then one day I got lazy and I was like, it's okay, I'll carry a balance this month. And that's all it takes. And you don't think credit card companies know that? I mean, this is not just you making a purchase. This is a psychological thing. This is a psychological effect. And I was doing great for years, and then I just started getting lazy. And then I started carrying a balance. Then I started realizing, whoa, why am I carrying a balance? And the reason why is because I'm making an impulse purchase. And a credit card is allowing me to make that impulse purchase. So what I started doing was, okay, I'm taking these credit cards out of my wallet, getting rid of them, putting the credit card on freeze, and I'm gonna take the money out of my savings. I'm gonna pay off the balance because it's just dumb for me to not do that, and I'm gonna be done with it. So now let's move on to bad money habit number 4, neglecting your retirement savings. This is something that is so important. It's scary if you don't do it, because for those that don't know, I worked in the financial industry, and one of the things that I did was working as an investment advisor. And so my job was to help people invest in the stock market. And actually, I built investment portfolios for them because some people just didn't have the time or they didn't have the know-how to do it. So they'll reach out to someone like me and say, hey, I need help putting together a financial plan. I need help putting together an investment portfolio, and I'll help them out with that. And sometimes that investment portfolio was specific for a retirement. So they were putting together a retirement strategy, right? Which is an investment strategy that's kind of different from your general investing that you may do. So I helped people do this. And some of the things that I remember or some of the conversations I've had that still stick with me are the ones that reached out to me when it was too late. And yes, there is such a thing as being too late. Okay, I'll give you a perfect example of what it means to be too late when it comes to putting retirement savings in place. When you're getting ready to retire, and you're at the point where you're like, hey, I can't just do this kind of work anymore. I'm tired. I want to stop working. And knowing you want to stop working and being able to stop working is something that not a lot of people have, right? If you know you want to stop working, but you can't stop working because you didn't do the due diligence of saving for your retirement when you had the time to, which was earlier on in your career, and you're at the point now when you want to retire, but you don't have retirement savings, what do you think you're going to be doing? You're going to continue working. And some people are stuck in that position where if they don't work, they can't live. And that's scary. And I've had conversations with individuals that wanted to retire, but they couldn't. And I was like, hey, look, you don't have any savings to work with. I can't create money out of thin air for you. The money that you've worked for all these years, you were supposed to save a portion of it. And that portion that you saved was supposed to work for you by being invested to generate an income stream for you later on. And the time that you had, which is like, okay, for example, if you were working for like 20, 40 years, that's 40 years of savings. That's 40 years of your money being in the stock market, which means that you had 40 years to grow your investments, which is a long time, taking advantage of the growth, the compounding growth that occurs within your portfolio. Yeah, 40 years to be able to do that, or 50 years. And the sad part is that a lot of us end up doing this when it's too late down the road, which means that you don't have that time horizon to be able to accumulate the wealth needed, accumulate the investments, amount of the money in your investments needed to be able to generate that income stream for you later on that you can live off on. Let's talk about how to avoid doing this and breaking out of this bad money habit. Number one, you need to set up a retirement account if you haven't done so. If you're working for an employer and your employer is good, whether it be a small business or corporation, you usually have a 401k or some kind of retirement benefit. And if you haven't signed up for it, go ahead and sign up for it, because you're leaving money on the table, especially if they do what is called a match. Now, a match is when you put up a certain percentage, or you contribute a certain percentage into your 401k, and the company matches that percentage. So let's say you contribute 5% of your paycheck into the 401k, then the company says, oh, okay, we'll match that and give you another 5%. And usually with that rule, you're going to have to stay with the company for, let's say, a year in order for you to be fully vested, or sometimes it's 5 years, depending on the rule. And it's different for every company. But that's money on the table you're leaving by not having a 401k. And you're probably saying to yourself, well, it's retirement. It's far down the road. Why do I need to worry about it now? No, you do need to worry about it now, because you're going to need that money later on. And you're going to need that money to work for you, because right now you have one form of income stream, but you can't afford just one form of income stream. You need multiple. And one of the easiest way to build up another income stream without having to start up a small business on the side, if you're not like into entrepreneurship, is just to have an investment account that you're going to utilize for generating income later on. And one of them is a 401k. You can establish a brokerage account and do the exact same thing. And there are other kinds of retirement accounts out there that you can utilize, like such as a Roth IRA or traditional IRA account. And those accounts are specific for retirement as well. Now, another thing you want to do is work with a financial professional if you feel like this is going to be overwhelming for you. Now, if you're starting off and you're at that age where like, hey, look, I just started making money and I don't really have much savings, you don't really need to take that route. I wouldn't take that route. The easiest route I would take is just, hey, set up a 401k with your company if they have one. Done. Easy. You don't have to worry about doing much there. And also set up like a simple Roth IRA account and buy into a ETF or a mutual fund, and actually have videos on, what those are, and buy into that and put money into it consistently is all pretty much you need to do for a while. And it's not a lot of work to do that. But if you're like well down the road and you're like trying to really put together a retirement strategy and retirement saving strategy, and you're trying to figure out how much money you're going to need to save, and how your investments are going to do over time, and generate that kind of income stream that you need to cover your monthly expenses and cover your needs that you have, sitting down with a professional and having them crunch those numbers out for you, it could be a beneficial to you, because now you can get a sense of what target you're working towards, how much you need to save in order to hit that target mark of having this kind of income, having a particular income stream from your investments in order to cover your monthly living expenses that you may have. Okay, so that's it for that bad money habit. Let's go ahead and jump into the next bad money habit, which is money habit number 5. And this one is failing to track expenses and creating a budget. So we talked about overspending. We talked about not having an emergency savings fund. We talked about misusing credit cards. Now, all of those have one thing in common, and that is budgeting. If you're not keeping a budget, it's easy for you to overspend. If you're not keeping a budget, it's easy for you not to build an emergency savings fund because you don't know how much. You don't even know what your monthly expenses are. If you're not keeping a budget, you're most likely overspending, which means you're using a credit card. And a budget is not there to tell you or tie you down as to what you can and can't do with your money. No, the budget tells you, hey, this is what you're doing with your money. It gives you insight. Say, hey, this is what you're spending money on, which means that, hey, these are your priorities right now. So if you want to change your priorities to, hey, I want to save because I want to build an income stream later on down the road, or I want to save because I want to build my emergency savings fund, your budget will reflect that priority. And so the budget is just a tool for you to use to achieve a particular goal that you want to achieve, and it's to aid you in doing that. So let's talk about how you can break out of this bad money habit. Okay, not setting up a budget is something that is detrimental to your finance. It's pretty obvious because you don't know where you're going. Why? Well, because you don't have a budget. So how do you know where you're spending in order to be able to cut back on? Okay. One of the ways to break out of it is to set up a budgeting method. Now, there's multiple budgeting methods out there. Okay. I'm going to share the two that I like the most, but there's actually, I think like four, right? You have the envelope method. You have the every dollar method. You have the 50-30-20 rule, and then you have to pay yourself first. Okay. Now, the two that I like the most is the pay yourself first and the 50-30-20 rule. Okay. So let's talk about those two. The 50-30-20 rule basically says, okay, 50% of my income is going to go towards my expenses. 30% of my income is going to go towards my wants, and 20% is going to go towards my savings. Okay. Now, you don't have to have it set that way. You can mess around with the percentage. It's not set in stone, but that's just a general rule of thumb to have, right? So doing this allows you to save 20% of your income all the time. Okay, great. And then you have 50% going towards your needs, and then 30% going towards your wants. Okay. Now, the other method of paying yourself first, that method I use with the 50-30-20 rule, because if I'm paying myself first, then I'm saying, okay, no matter what, when my paycheck comes in, I'm going to automatically have an automatic savings plan of 20% going into my savings. So 20% of my income is going to go into my savings automatically. Done. And then whatever comes into my checkings, that's it. That's all I have for the month. That's what I have to cover my needs and my wants. Done. So let's go to the next bad money habit, which is living beyond your means. Okay. Now, we just talked about a budget. Living beyond your means is easy to do when you're not keeping a budget. Living beyond your means is easy to do when you're carrying a credit card balance and you're utilizing a credit card. Living beyond your means is easy to do when you are an impulse shopper and an overspender. Living beyond your means is easy to do when you don't have a vision as to what you want for yourself when it comes to your personal finance and what you want to accomplish, right? Keeping up with the Joneses is something that affects many people, and it's easy to fall into the cycle, especially on social media. And a lot of people don't realize they're doing it, but it's one of the easiest way to stay broke because you are living a lifestyle that's not real, that's not sustainable, and eventually it's going to catch up to you. And usually, ties back to retirement, it catches up to you later on down the road because now you have no savings to retire on, and you're tired of working to keeping up with. You see how it works? Like, you're tired of working. The money that you've been bringing in for all these years, you've been trying to keep up with the Joneses, so you've been spending it. You've been racking up credit card debt, and so you're in this rat wheel, okay? And now you've reached a point where you're tired of being on that rat wheel, but you can't stop because you did not wisely utilize the income that you were receiving. So, how do we break out of this cycle of living beyond your means? Well, simple: creating a budget, not utilizing a credit card. Okay. Those are the two ways right there. And then another way is establishing your values and principles. Once you establish that, it's going to be easier for you not to try to keep up with the Joneses because you're like, no, that's not my priority. Items, materialistic items, I don't care. I'm working to build something here. And so what you end up doing is overcoming the social media effect of wanting to keep up with the Joneses, wanting to look nice, wanting to look like you got the nice item. Like that's easily done away with when you realize that, hey, there's more to my life than just materialistic things. And I want to have that lifestyle that, yeah, later on I could buy those nice things if I want to. And I'm not saying don't enjoy life, but you don't have to put yourself in a dire financial situation to be able to enjoy life. Okay. And later on, you're going to even be able to enjoy life even more because now you have the financial capital to do so. Because you paid the price, you made the sacrifices today, you formed the good habits in order for you to be able to enjoy the hard earned money that you're making today.